Imagine the scene. It's the night of August 14th, 1947. You are in New Delhi. The humid monsoon air is, well, it's absolutely heavy, but there's this electric current running through the crowds.
Right, outside the Legislative Assembly.
Exactly. And inside, Jawaharlal Nehru stands up. He's about to deliver what is, arguably one of the most famous speeches of the 20th century. Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny.
It is so cinematic. The Union Jack comes down, the tricolor goes up, and the British Empire officially retreats.
And if you stop the movie right there, it looks like the perfect fairy tale ending to a long struggle.
But we aren't stopping the movie there.
No, we're not, because the source material we're diving into today, Challenges of Nation Building, paints a very, very different picture. It suggests that while the cameras were on Delhi, the rest of the country wasn't cheering.
It was burning. That's really the core of it. The birth of India wasn't this peaceful transition, it was a trauma. If you zoomed out from that hall in Delhi, you'd see cities like Kolkata, Lahore, Amritsar, just engulfed in flames. There's a haunting description in the text from the Urdu poet Faiz Ahmed Faiz. He didn't call it a glorious dawn.
What did he call it?
He called it a scarred, marred brightness, a bitten-by-night dawn.
Wow, a bitten-by-night dawn. That is such a visceral contradiction. And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to look past the textbook dates and try to understand the three massive existential challenges India faced the moment it was born.
Right, because in 1947, the survival of India was not a guarantee. It was a huge gamble. The country had to do three things at once, any one of which would break a normal nation.
Okay, what were they?
First, shape a united nation out of a continent's worth of diversity. Second, establish a democracy in a largely illiterate society. And third, ensure economic well-being for everyone, not just the elite.
That is a tall order for a country that is literally on fire. And for this episode, we are focusing entirely on that first terrifying challenge, national unity. How do you hold a country together when the very act of its birth involves tearing it apart?
And when we say tearing apart, we have to start with the partition. It's the shadow that hangs over everything in the source material.
Let's get into the mechanics of this, because I think we often just see it as a line drawn on a map. Okay, Muslims here, Hindus there. But the source emphasizes this came from the two-nation theory. Can you break that down?
Sure. The two-nation theory was the core argument from the Muslim League. Essentially, they argued India wasn't one nation, but two distinct peoples, Hindus and Muslims.
And so they needed a separate homeland.
They required a separate sovereign homeland, which would be Pakistan.
Which the Congress Party opposed, right? They were pushing for a secular state.
Vehemently. But the political reality of the 1940s, the rising communal tensions, the maneuvering, the British role, eventually made partition inevitable. But here's the insight from the text. Accepting the idea was one thing. Implementing it
was a logistical nightmare.
A nightmare nobody had properly planned for.
Because populations aren't neat, you don't have all Muslims in one corner and all Hindus in another.
Exactly. There was no single belt of Muslim-majority areas. So the solution was this bizarre geography. Create a Pakistan with two wings, West Pakistan and East Pakistan, separated by a huge chunk of Indian territory.
That's like trying to govern a country where half is in France and the other half is in Poland, with Germany in between. It sounds impossible.
Geographically absurd, but it got worse. The provinces of Punjab and Bengal had Muslim majorities, but also huge non-Muslim populations.
So they had to be split.
They split them, and not carefully. Over years, it was done at the district level, basically overnight.
This is the part that blows my mind. The source notes that on August 15th, Independence Day, millions of people literally didn't know which country they were in.
They had no idea. Imagine waking up, the flag has changed, and suddenly you are an undesirable alien in the village your family has lived in for centuries.
That uncertainty must have fueled the panic.
And the panic fueled the violence.
The numbers in the text are staggering. It calls it one of the largest, most abrupt, and unplanned transfers of population in human history.
The scale is hard to comprehend. The source estimates around 80 lakh, that's 8 million people, were forced to migrate.
Refugees in their own land.
And the death toll. Estimates range from 5 to 10 lakh people, up to 1 million people dead.
We have to talk about that violence. The text mentions communal zones. It sounds like a war zone.
It was a civil war in all but name. Cities like Lahore, Amritsar, and Kolkata were carved up. If you were the wrong religion in a specific zone, you just couldn't go there.
But it was worse than just territory.
Oh, it was a total breakdown of social morality. The atrocities described against women are particularly horrific. Abduction, forced conversions.
And even families killing their own women to, quote, save their honor.
Chilling. It shows how quickly the social fabric can just disintegrate. There's a reference in the source to a film, Garam Hawa. It tells the story of Salim Mirza. He doesn't go to Pakistan, he stays in Agra.
And what happens to him?
His whole world falls apart. His business fails, his house is taken, he watches his family crumble. It just captures that feeling of becoming a stranger in your own home.
Which is what the writers and poets at the time called it, right? The division of hearts.
The division of hearts. It wasn't just a political border, it was a psychological fracture. And while people were bleeding, the administration was busy dividing assets.
Oh, this part is just absurd. They weren't just dividing land, they were dividing tables, chairs, typewriters.
Even the musical instruments of the police band.
You're kidding!
No. It highlights the surreal nature of bureaucracy. You're counting paper clips while the streets outside are running with blood.
So, amidst this total collapse of humanity, where was Mahatma Gandhi? We started with Nehru in Delhi, but where was the father of the nation?
That is the most poignant contrast in the source material. While Delhi was applauding, Gandhi was nowhere near the capital. He was in Kolkata.
He refused to participate.
He refused. He was heartbroken. I mean, you have to remember, he spent his life preaching ahimsa nonviolence. And now, in the moment of freedom, he saw the country consumed by hatred. He was just walking through riot-torn areas trying to stop the killing.
And the source says he used his most potent weapon there, fasting.
Yes, and it actually worked. His presence in Kolkata calmed things down temporarily. The source says it improved dramatically. But then he moved to Delhi, where violence was erupting against Muslims. He undertook his last fast in January 1948.
Now, this fast wasn't just the general plea for peace, was it? It was politically specific.
Very specific, and frankly very dangerous for him. He had two demands. First, that Muslims be allowed to return to their homes in Delhi safely. And second, that the government of India honor its financial commitments to Pakistan.
Wait, hold on. India and Pakistan are basically at war over Kashmir. Violence is everywhere, and Gandhi is insisting India pay Pakistan money it owes them.
Exactly. You can imagine how that went down with the extremists. They saw it as betrayal. They accused him of appeasement, of being too soft.
And that tension is what led to January 30th, 1948.
Nathuram Vinayak Godse, yes. During his evening prayer meeting, Godse walked up to Gandhi and fired 3 bullets. The father of the nation was dead.
Such a tragic end. But the source notes this strange paradox about the aftermath. It says his death had a magical effect.
It did. It shocked the nation into silence. The sheer horror of killing an old man, the symbol of the freedom struggle, it made people realize how far into the abyss they had fallen.
So the violence just stopped.
The communal tension dropped almost immediately. It gave the government the political capital to crack down on extremist organizations, and for a while the violence subsided.
So the country is shocked into a temporary peace. But the map is still a mess. We've talked about the border with Pakistan, but what about the inside of India? The 1947 map looks like Swiss cheese.
That brings us to the second major crisis, the princely states.
All 565 of them. I think people forget this. British India wasn't just one solid block.
Not at all. It was a patchwork. You had British India, directly ruled by the crown, and then you had these princely states, which covered a third of the landmass. When the British left, they declared that their paramountcy, their control over these princes, had lapsed.
And the legal implication of that was terrifying. It meant all 565 rulers were technically free to do whatever they wanted.
Legally, yes. Join India, join Pakistan, or, and this was the real nightmare, remain independent.
Imagine the chaos. The ruler of Travancore announces he's an independent nation. The Nizam of Hyderabad says the same thing.
It would have been the Balkanization of India. You couldn't drive from Delhi to Mumbai without crossing 4 international borders.
You'd need a passport.
Exactly. And this is where Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the deputy prime minister, steps in. The source credits him with a historic role. He mixed diplomatic persuasion with very firm pressure, the classic Iron Man approach.
So how did he pull it off? Was it just sign here or else?
It was more nuanced. He appealed to their patriotism, but, he also kept the threat of military force in his back pocket. He created the Instrument of Execution, which basically said, give us defense, foreign affairs, and communications, and we'll leave you alone on other stuff.
And most fell in line.
Most did, before August 15th. But there were some tough nuts to crack.
The source highlights Hyderabad, a massive state right in the belly of India.
The largest princely state. The Nizam was one of the richest men in the world, and he wanted to be independent. He signed a standstill agreement with India, to buy time. Basically, let's just freeze things while I figure this out.
But the people inside Hyderabad weren't willing to wait.
No. A massive peasant movement started against the Nizam's oppressive rule. Women were a huge part of this. The Nizam responded by unleashing a paramilitary force called the Razakars.
The Razakars, the descriptions of them are brutal.
A private militia. They murdered, raped, looted, specifically targeting non-Muslims to create terror. The central government couldn't stand by. In September 1948, they ordered a police action.
Basically a military operation.
In effect, yes. After a few days of fighting, the Nizam surrendered. Hyderabad was part of India.
So Hyderabad was a military integration. But what about Manipur? That story seems a bit more politically complex.
Manipur is fascinating. The Maharaja, Bodhchandra Singh, actually held elections in June 1948.
Wait, hold on. June 1948, that's before the rest of India held its first general election.
Yes, that's a huge trivia point. Manipur was the first part of India to hold an election based on universal adult franchise. They established a constitutional monarchy.
So Manipur was a democracy before the Indian Republic was fully formed. That's a paradox I did not see coming. But they aren't a constitutional monarchy today. What happened?
Well, the elected assembly in Manipur was split. The local Congress wanted to merge with India, but other parties were fiercely against it. The government of India felt a separate. Manipur was a security risk.
So they put on the pressure.
Immense pressure. In September 1949, they essentially forced the Maharaja to sign a merger agreement. And the crucial point the source makes is that they did this without consulting the popularly elected assembly.
That seems like a violation of the very democratic spirit they were trying to build.
It was. The text explicitly says this caused a lot of anger and resentment in Manipur, the repercussions of which are still being felt. A stark reminder that national unity wasn't always a handshake deal. Sometimes it was coercive.
Okay, let's take stock. Patel manages to glue these 565 pieces together. We have the outer border, despite the tragedy, and the internal territories are integrated. But now there's a new problem. How do you draw the administrative lines inside this huge new map?
The internal boundaries. This brings us to the third big challenge, the issue of linguistic states.
This part is so interesting because the Congress Party had actually promised this decades earlier, right?
Yes, way back in 1920 at their Nagpur session.
Yeah.
They recognized that people identify with their language, Marathi, Tamil, Telugu. The promise was, fight with us, and once the British leave, we will give you states based on your language.
But then 1947 happens, partition happens, and suddenly Nehru and the leadership are getting cold feet.
Well, can you blame them? From their perspective, they'd just seen the country divided by religion, leading to millions of deaths. The idea of now dividing it again by language felt suicidal.
They feared it would lead to disintegration.
That people would be more loyal to their language than to the nation. So they said, let's delay this. Let's focus on unity.
But you can't just tell people to forget their identity. The people weren't willing to wait.
No, specifically in the Telugu-speaking areas of the Madras province. They wanted a separate state, Andhra. And it all came to a head with one man, Godi Sriramalu.
Tell us about him.
A veteran Gandhian. To force the government's hand, he went on an indefinite fast.
A fast unto death.
Yes. And tragically, the government miscalculated. They didn't concede. Sriramalu fasted for 56 days. He died on December 15th, 1952.
56 days. His death must have been the spark in the powder keg.
Absolute chaos. Violent outbursts, police firing, legislators resigning. The government realized they had lost control. Prime Minister Nehru was forced to capitulate and announce the formation of Andhra just days later.
It's amazing how history is shaped by these singular moments. One man's death changed the map of India.
And it opened the floodgates. Once Andhra was formed, every other linguistic group said, what about us? The government had to appoint the State's Reorganisation Commission in 1953.
And the SRC basically said, okay, let's do it.
They accepted the logic, that the boundaries of the state should reflect the boundaries of language. This led to the States Reorganization Act of 1956, creating 14 states and 6 union territories.
Now, looking back, was Nehru's fear justified? Did linguistic states break India apart?
That is the big aha moment here. The answer is no. In fact, the source argues it was the exact opposite. Accommodating these regional demands actually strengthened national unity.
That seems so counterintuitive. How does emphasizing difference strengthen unity?
Because it resolved the tension. It allowed people to be comfortable with their regional identity without feeling it conflicted with their national identity. You could be a proud Tamil and a proud Indian. You didn't have to choose.
If they tried to suppress those identities.
That might have caused a civil war.
So it proved that in a democracy, unity doesn't mean uniformity.
Precisely. It was a lesson in federalism. We integrated the territory through Patel's firmness, but we integrated the people through the flexibility of linguistic states.
That is such a powerful takeaway. We went from a bitten-by-night dawn, a country bleeding and shredded, with 565 princes trying to go their own way, to a unified nation that learned to embrace its own diversity.
It's a remarkable journey. Not perfect, and as we saw with Manipuri, it left the scars. But considering the scale of the challenge in 1947, the fact that India survives as a unified democracy is a historic feat.
But before we sign off, I want to leave our listener with a thought. The source mentions that while the administrative map was drawn, the hearts were divided during partition. Writers called it a division of hearts.
And we see that tension between the region and the nation continuing today. We solved the linguistic map, but that negotiation between regional and national identity is constant.
So here's the question for you to mull over. Has the project of nation building actually finished? Or is this negotiation between the state, the region, and the diverse communities a permanent, never-ending future of Indian democracy?
That is the question. The map is drawn, but the nation is always being built.
That is it for this deep dive into 1947 and the birth of India. Thanks for listening.